11 million dead. Not over centuries, not in scattered wars across distant frontiers, but in 7 violent years in cities where poetry once flourished and gardens bloomed, beneath skies now choked with ash. A number so vast it slips beyond comprehension, hovering between myth and nightmare, yet etched in bone and broken stone. When the Mongol horde descended upon Persia in the 13th century, they didn't merely conquer, they unmade worlds. Merchants who once counted their gold by candlelight became corpses, stacked like cordwood. Irrigation canals that had transformed desert into paradise for 1,000 years ran red, then dry. From horizon to horizon, flourishing towns became echoing wastelands, their fires visible for days, their silence lasting generations. This wasn't merely conquest, it was erasure, a demographic earthquake whose aftershocks would reshape empires for centuries. The question burns not just how the Mongols killed 11 million, but why? And what terror gripped the throat of the scholar who watched armored shadows approach from his tower? What prayers whispered from the lips of mothers as they clutched children to their breasts? What desperate calculations made by rulers as the greatest land empire in history descended upon what had been the intellectual and cultural heart of the Islamic world? This is the genocide that redrew the map of the Middle East, written in blood that has long dried but never truly faded. The Mongols arrived not as raiders, but as judgment itself. Genghis Khan's declaration rings with terrible simplicity: surrender and live, resist and perish utterly. Persia, under the Khwarazmian Empire, senses the Mongol shadow growing across the eastern horizon but refuses to believe its darkness. Shah Ala ad-Din Muhammad II, secure behind his fortress walls, dismisses these steppe warriors as mere barbarians emboldened by superstition. He cannot fathom what the harsh plains have forged, armies where every bowstring has been oiled in ritual precision, where each rider's existence has been distilled to 3 elements: perfect obedience, inhuman endurance, and the cold ecstasy of methodical killing. When Genghis sends trade envoys in peace, the Shah responds with savage hubris, mutilating the messengers and returning their dismembered remains, a decision that seals the fate of millions. In Mongol law, Ambassador Blood demands vengeance beyond measure. The response will transcend diplomacy, it will be apocalyptic. While the Shah savors his hollow defiance, Genghis kneels hundreds of miles away beneath a sky wheeling with hunting hawks. He immerses his weathered hands in the cold waters of the Irtysh River, swearing that for every drop of envoy blood shed, rivers will flow in retribution. The very earth begins to tremble as countless hooves compress the soil, the steppe emptying itself westward as an empire of horsemen rides toward vengeance. Winter 1219. The Mongols pour into Transoxiana like a flood loosed from the mountains, swift, gray, unstoppable. They do not march in straight lines, but unfold like a plague, consuming everything in their path. Their army is not a singular hammer, but a fractal storm, moving in disciplined chaos that defies conventional tactics. Each rider, wrapped in layers of felt and leather, with breath crystallizing through frost-crusted veils, carries everything needed for survival and death on his single horse. They sleep in saddles, eat dried meat while galloping, kill without hesitation or mercy. Towns fall before messengers can warn of their approach, populations vanishing before the next sunrise. Otrar stands first in their path, the gateway to the Khwarazmian heartland, its walls suddenly meaningless. The siege begins methodically and ends in calculated slaughter. From distant hills, the city's defenders watch strange wooden machines assemble with inhuman precision, creaking toward their walls like predatory beasts. When the fortifications finally crumble, Mongol warriors flow through breaches like quicksilver, their blades catching sunlight before drinking darkness. The population is separated, catalogued and executed according to value and threat. The governor who ordered the envoy's mutilation is brought before Subutai, the general's weathered face revealing nothing as the official's bowels empty in terror. The man's execution unfolds over 3 agonizing days, a demonstration that time itself belongs to the conquerors. As winter hardens the blood-soaked ground, Shah Muhammad flees not to regroup his forces, but to save himself, abandoning cities filled with his subjects to unspeakable fates. Outside Samarkand's crumbling walls, a girl no older than 13 uses broken fingers to claw frozen earth, burying her mother's mutilated body before scavenging birds or Mongol patrols return. The silence that follows is not peace, merely the hollow moment between heartbeats of slaughter. Miles away, in the once glittering city of Bukhara, the mosque trembles, not with prayer, but with footsteps, thousands of them, hooves pounding against marble courtyards, steel scraping ancient script from hallowed sandstone. Genghis Khan enters the grand mosque not as a conqueror, but as nature itself, inexorable and without malice. He ascends the pulpit, his shadow stretching across terrified faces below, and speaks words that will echo through centuries. I am the punishment of God. Had you not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you. No flourish colors his voice, no ceremony softens his presence, just truth spoken with the finality of winter frost. Bukhara surrenders, clinging to fragile hope. What follows is not chaos, but methodical erasure. Mongol officers separate the population with clinical precision, skilled artisans catalogued and marked for deportation east, scholars bound in chains for interrogation, the remainder deemed without value. Wells that had refreshed travelers for centuries become mass graves, their waters turning viscous and black with decay. The magnificent dome of the mosque, once tiled in patterns mimicking heaven's vault, amplifies only screams now. Each slaughter broadcasts a message that races ahead of Mongol arrows. Resistance is extinction. The psychological wound cuts deeper than any blade, shattering the will of cities not yet conquered. As Bukhara burns, Shah Muhammad continues his desperate flight, stripping gold from abandoned temples, conscripting peasants only to abandon them at first contact. In the barren wastes of Khorasan, he sheds even the pretense of leadership, discarding royal garments and insignia. On a windswept island in the Caspian Sea, the once mighty Shah dies of fever and despair, unnamed and unmourned by subjects he betrayed. Yet the war refuses to die with him. His son, Jalal al-Din, inherits not an empire, but a blood debt, a desperate fury that will drive him to deeds of both heroism and madness. Jalal al-Din rises not in the shadow of his father, but in defiance of it, his eyes carved from obsidian resolve, his knuckles raw and split from ceaseless riding, training, surviving. He is no mere prince clinging to tattered banners of dynasty, but a warrior forged in betrayal and fire, carrying the weight of 11 million souls upon shoulders that refuse to bow. Where his father fled, Jalal attacks with savage precision. With a fragmented army of survivors, desert mercenaries, and vengeance-hungry volunteers, he launches raids like lightning against the Mongol storm, quick strikes that bewilder even the most seasoned of Genghis's commanders. The impossible happens at Parwan in 1221, when Jalal seizes what no man has yet claimed, a Mongol defeat on open ground. Subutai, the loyal general whose name mothers whisper to frighten children, is forced to retreat amid chaos and blood, his scarred lip curled, not in shame, but in newfound interest. Jalal's name transforms to legend between heartbeats, carried by desperate whispers, from collapsed minarets to embattled refugee camps hiding in mountain shadows. But victory offers no sanctuary in this new world. Genghis himself, sensing a worthy adversary at last, takes the field with terrible focus. He crosses the mighty Indus and crashes down upon Jalal al-Din's last stronghold, like a mountain falling from the sky. The Battle of the Indus unfolds beneath blinding sun and choking dust, amid river spray, where the screams of dying men are swallowed by rushing waters. Jalal watches his forces flanked, surrounded, crushed beneath Mongol precision. Refusing to die cornered like his father, Jalal spurs his exhausted horse toward the cliff edge and leaps from a towering height into the churning river below. A moment so audacious in its defiance that even Genghis Khan himself pauses his advance to watch, reportedly raising his hand to halt archers. Some witnesses claim the great Khan nodded with something like respect as the young lion vanished into white foam. Jalal escapes with his life, but nothing more, for his world does not survive. The Mongols, now unimpeded, turn toward the bleeding heart of Persia, with a doctrine evolved beyond mere conquest, the systematic annihilation not just of armies and cities, but of history and memory itself. Nishapur falls next, and with it, a scream that seems to echo across time itself. The city cradles civilization's treasures, scholars whose quills had illuminated mankind's understanding of stars and poetry alike. But Mongol vengeance recognizes no beauty, only blood debt. When Tolugan, husband to Genghis Khan's daughter, falls during the siege with an arrow through his throat, his widow Altani arrives to oversee retribution personally. Her command cuts through the air like winter frost. Every living soul must perish. For 3 merciless days, the slaughter continues with mechanical precision, soldiers moving house to house, dragging trembling philosophers from hidden cellars, tearing infants from mothers' arms. Scholars die clutching precious manuscripts that will never be completed, their blood seeping into parchment where fresh ink still glistens. The canals that once nourished pomegranate orchards now run thick with gore, clogging with severed limbs and torn garments. Outside the broken gates, Mongol soldiers stack severed heads in precise pyramids, women and children atop scholars and warriors, a grotesque monument visible for miles across the plains. Each city systematically erased adds to the spreading silence across the Persian plateau. The Mongols do not merely destroy, they unmake existence itself. Irrigation systems that sustained life for centuries are demolished stone by stone. Gardens are salted. Libraries containing knowledge gathered across millennia fuel pyres that burn for weeks. This is not conquest, but ontological erasure, a civilization's very memory being excised from reality. Yet beneath one collapsed wall, a single trembling hand pushes manuscripts into a sealed clay vessel, burying it deep within the earth, a desperate wager that someone might someday remember what was lost. And still the Mongols ride. They press ever westward, deeper into Khorasan and Mazandaran, where the earth transforms from scorched dust to tangled forests, and the mountains carry the final desperate cries of a people being methodically hunted through the land that birthed them. City after city vanishes beneath the Mongol tide. Herat, Rey, Kazvin, each with its own unique agony. Survivors speak of slaughter so comprehensive that the air itself becomes a miasma of decay, thick enough to taste on the tongue, to coat the lungs with each ragged breath. Mongol generals divide territories with mathematical precision, assigning death quotas to squadrons who move through neighborhoods with ledgers and blades, marking each kill with notches on bone tallies. Entire provinces empty of human voices, their names surviving only in fragmented chronicles penned by trembling refugees. The death toll transcends individual tragedy, becoming geographic absence, water wheels motionless in dried canals, gardens reclaimed by wilderness, temples where no prayers echo. By the 7th year, when Mongol forces finally withdraw to consolidate their fractured empire, 11 million Persian lives have vanished, claimed by systematic execution, deliberate starvation, bodies broken on torture wheels, and virulent plagues that follow armies like faithful hounds. The land itself bears witness. Soil once nurturing civilization now lies barren, sterilized by salt and soaked with suffering too profound for healing. Languages that sang poetry for 1,000 years fall silent, their last speakers buried in unmarked graves. Ancient family lines that traced ancestry to Darius and Cyrus terminate in single, savage moments. Though new dynasties eventually rise from the smoking ruins, claiming continuity with past glories, the demographic wound remains, a chasm between what was and what might have been. Centuries later, a traveler digging a well in northern Iran uncovers an ossuary filled with countless skulls, each bearing the distinctive mark of Mongol axes. He collapses to his knees, breath stolen not by fear but by terrible understanding. This quiet village once supported a magnificent city of 10,000 souls. Now only fractured bones remain as testament, silent witnesses to a civilization's erasure, their stories calcified in eternal silence. But memory, even when hunted by fire and blade, persists in the embers of small defiance. In a forgotten corner of a charred village near Marv, a child, the lone survivor of his family, grows into an old man whose trembling lips preserve the dialect of a people thought extinguished. His calloused fingers trace invisible letters in the air while reciting verses of poets whose names were once carved on marble monuments, now reduced to dust. The stories he shares bear the whispers of 11 million ghosts, their voices converging in his frail body. In a mosque rebuilt atop blackened ruins, the muezzin calls to prayer with a melody that carries the hidden cadence of vanished musical traditions, his throat channeling the sonic memories of countless silenced ancestors. The Mongols rode with methodical purpose and cold fury, yet even as they systematically erased, their very destruction became the negative space defining what survived. Persian manuscripts smuggled by fleeing scholars seeded new intellectual flowerings in Damascus, Cairo, and beyond. Women with noble Persian blood in their veins married into distant tribes, weaving their cultural memories into new tapestries of identity. The genocide shattered a civilization, but paradoxically scattered its essence like seeds carried on violent winds, taking root in unexpected soil, sprouting in whispered bedtime stories, concealed rituals, orphaned architectural techniques, and bloodlines carrying cultural memory in their very cells. The final devastating irony remains in their quest for absolute erasure. The Mongols created the very conditions ensuring Persia would never be forgotten. The land bled rivers but refused obliteration. Its conspicuous absence shaped every kingdom that rose in its wake, its ghost haunting every border redrawn across the wounded landscape. And somewhere still, beneath layers of ash and centuries of silence, waits a clay vessel containing manuscript pages inked by fingers long since returned to dust, patient witnesses to what was lost, waiting in darkness for future eyes to rediscover what 11 million deaths could not entirely destroy. So the question pulses once more, returning like a heartbeat through scorched soil. How do you remember a civilization deliberately forgotten? How do you speak the names of the dead when even their gravestones were ground to dust? The answer lies not in monuments, but in the hushed reverence of memory itself. In today's DNA lineages, in words borrowed unconsciously across borders, in fragments of melody haunting lullabies sung thousands of miles from their origin. The genocide that claimed 11 million did not erase Persia. It transformed it into a phantom limb still felt by the body of civilization. Cities rebuilt atop mass graves carry whispers in their foundations. Languages reborn with borrowed syntax retain echoes of forgotten poets, political boundaries drawn not from ambition, but from the negative space of annihilation. When Mongol armies finally departed, they left behind not just death, but an architectural absence so profound it shaped everything built thereafter. The true legacy of this slaughter lives in the persistence of what could not be killed, cultural memories carried in the blood itself. Knowledge preserved not in grand libraries, but in the intimate gestures of grandmothers teaching granddaughters to brew tea with rituals older than their language. Perhaps the most haunting evidence remains beneath layers of ordinary life. A broken ceramic ink pot uncovered by a farmer's daughter near Tehran, its surface etched with verses no one living can translate, yet whose curves stir inexplicable ache in her chest. As she traces the ancient script with ink-stained fingers, her body remembers what her mind cannot, becoming a living bridge across centuries of deliberate forgetting. Her tears fall upon the ancient clay, not in conscious mourning, but in unconscious recognition. 11 million souls vanished, yet their essence flows through her veins, through our modern world, through the very language we use to tell their story. This is how Persia survived, not as a continuous thread of history, but as the invisible weft in the fabric of all that followed. And so, the final echo of this genocide resonates not merely in dusty tomes or crumbling ruins, but in the very breath between words, in grief so ancient we no longer recognize its name. We unknowingly traverse the aftermath daily, our feet crossing soil where 11 million ghosts remember what civilization forced itself to forget. The true horror was never just the methodical slaughter, but the surgical attempt to excise memory itself from history's body, to carve such profound absence that even remembrance would starve. Yet memory flows like water, seeking lowest ground, persistent and patient, finding invisible channels through seemingly impenetrable stone. It resurfaces in unconscious dreams that wake us trembling, in ritual movements our hands perform without instruction, in melodies hummed while kneading bread that connect us to singers centuries dead. The Khwarazmian scholar's manuscripts, buried as his executioners approached, now inform philosophies taught in universities continents away. Persian architectural principles whisper through buildings whose designers never learned their origin. The genocide that systematically dismantled Persia could not extinguish its essence, for cultures do not die completely when witnessed. That flickering light now resides within each person who receives this story and refuses complicity in forgetting. In the DNA of survivors dispersed across continents live cellular memories of gardens that once perfumed the air, of mathematical innovations that calculated celestial movements, of poetry that made love tangible. Remembrance itself becomes resistance against time's erosion, each retelling a defiant act against deliberate erasure. What was methodically unmade can never be fully restored, yet in acknowledging the wound, we outline the shape of what was lost. And in this recognition, we accomplish what the Mongol horde with all its terrible efficiency could not. We return voices to the silenced, faces to the vanished, and whisper across centuries to those 11 million souls. Your civilization survives in fragments carried forward. Your stories still breathe. You are witnessed. You are not forgotten. This story does not end cleanly, because genocide never does. There is no moment where the screen fades to black and the pain departs with the credits. Instead, the silence that follows carries questions with no satisfying answers. Who remembers the names etched into lost alcoves, the lullabies stilled mid-breath, the mathematical theorems that died with their authors? Their absence is stitched into the seams of modern maps and the gaps in family trees impossible to mend. The soil of Iran still turns bones with the plow, each fragment a testament to lives violently severed. And in the hallways of power today, echoes of erasure repeat in different tongues, new empires testing old tactics with veiled ambition. Blood-soaked patterns resurface in modern conflicts, where again populations become statistics, cultures become casualties. That is why this old wound must remain open in memory, for only by witnessing its depth can we recognize the signs when they begin to stir anew. The systematic destruction that consumed 11 million Persians remains not just a historical tragedy, but a mirror, demanding we confront what lurks within the human capacity to dehumanize, to categorize life as expendable, to sacrifice beauty on the altar of dominance. As long as someone pauses to trace these fractured stories, to speak names long silenced, to imagine gardens reduced to ash, the Mongols failed utterly in their most terrible aim. The final act of defiance against such calculated erasure is remembrance, each retelling a rebellion against oblivion. And it must never end. So let this final breath of story not be an ending, but a vigil, a sacred watch kept over the grave of a civilization that never truly died, only dispersed like ashes caught in eternal winds. The Mongol cavalry has long since vanished into the mists of history, their terrible hooves no longer tearing earth, but their scars remain etched across millennia in the eroded calligraphy of broken stone, in lost lexicons of brilliant minds, silenced mid-thought, in the hollow spaces where music once bloomed with mathematical precision. We carry their memory now not as burden, but as sacred inheritance. Every time we speak their forgotten names, every time we remember that manuscripts burned at Nishapur held celestial maps, charting stars we still gaze upon, every time we acknowledge that children once whispered prayers in dialects now vanished from human tongues, we become living monuments to what was nearly erased. Not for vengeance against long-dead conquerors, not for guilt that serves no purpose, but because only unflinching truth stands resolute in the path of calculated oblivion. 11 million voices were methodically silenced, their throats cut with clinical precision, their words scattered like leaves before winter winds. But listen closely to the spaces between your own heartbeats, to the cadence in your own blood. They still speak, their whispers carried in the very fabric of our shared humanity, waiting for those with courage enough to hear. Because some stories refuse to end in silence. Some stories continue through the breath held forever, mid-sentence, echoing through time until they merge with the wind that caresses scorched plains and ash-choked valleys once called home. 11 million voices were brutally silenced, yet the act of telling their fate becomes the only elegy vast enough to contain their vanishing. The genocide that transformed Persia did not merely alter demographics, it seared a warning into the very concept of civilization, a lesson written not in ink but in methodical annihilation. It reveals that the truest measure of power lies not in conquest, but in what endures beyond it. As long as we speak these lost names, as long as memory persists when monuments crumble, we defy the silence the Mongols sought to impose. Let this be our final act of defiance, this sacred ritual of remembrance, offered not in revenge, but in profound reverence. Remember them, speak for them, carry their extinguished light into every shadowed corner where forgetting threatens to consume truth. In their memory, we walk forward with hearts haunted by their absence, but filled with their enduring spirit. And now, as the last words settle into silence, as the final syllables echo across the hollow immensity left by vengeance, we are left with the only inheritance that matters. Witness. Not as cold scholars of death tolls or nameless destruction, but as living sentinels to memory itself. The story of when the Mongols killed 11 million Persians is not just about loss. It is the anatomy of absence, the pulse of what remains when language breaks and song falters. It is a history taught by the ruins of vanished cities and the breathless ache in our chests when we realize that somewhere, someone once loved, dreamed, and died beneath stars we still share. This is not the end. It is a long, unbroken watch against silence, a sacred vow that amid all the fire and forgetting, we will remember. Not just the numbers, but the names, not just the ruins, but the rhythms, not just the conquest, but the culture it sought to erase. Let this be our promise to those 11 million souls, that in our telling, in our trembling remembrance, their voices rise once more like smoke from forgotten altars, curling eternal into the sky, undimmed by time, unerased by brutality, unconquered in the realm of memory where true civilization endures.